how the heck do people afford homes in the greater Seattle region in 2025? Now, I've worked with a lot of clients that have made sacrifices to get the home that they want. Some have had to make sacrifices on what they're willing to pay. Others have had to make sacrifices and move further out. And some of the sacrifices are bigger than others, but I want to show you how you can make home ownership a reality in this beautiful region that we call the Emerald City. I got some smart strategies, some creative approaches that I want to show you that I've learned firsthand over my years. Some of them are personal. There are really some smart strategies out there that I've learned firsthand over the years with my clients that make home ownership very achievable. My name is Matthew Chapman. I'm a Seattle realtor here. I come from a family of realtors that have been doing this for over 40 years. I'm in the top 1%, and I get phone calls from people like you all the time, just curious about the home buying or home selling process. So if you got questions, just message me, text me, and make sure you subscribe to my channel right now so you get notified of all future content. I always tell my friends and my clients who think affordability is way out of the question here in this region now, that you can become a homeowner. You can make home ownership a reality here in this greater Seattle area. You just need a plan. You just need some strategies. So first, we're going to talk general strategies, and then we're going to get into some creative, outside of the box thinking that may actually be the ticket for you for home ownership. So if you've got questions about this video, just drop them in the comments. They may actually even be a future video that I will film just for you, because if you're asking questions, I find that many other people are asking the same questions as you. So I'd love to hear your questions. Just drop them in the comments below. So when you're trying to buy a home, there are really just two main questions that often trip people up. They're the same questions. They keep coming back. And the first question is, will the bank allow you to take out a loan for a certain amount? And the second question is, will I be able to afford it? So let's tackle the first question. Will the bank allow me to take out a loan for the amount that I'm looking for? So the answer to the first question really depends on a couple factors. One is how much money you make. Two is your debt to income ratio. How much debt are you carrying? Do you have any big car loans or student loans? And then the third is, what is your credit score? Now, if you have credit problems, that's not the end of the world. There are credit repair strategies out there. I'm not going to get into all those strategies right now. That might be for another video where we bring on a lender to discuss that as well. But the key thing to remember here is that banks only lend for the amount of money that they see on paper. Now, I had a client that was self-employed, and they were self-employed for only about a year, and they were having a lot of struggles getting a loan, even though they actually made quite a bit of money and they were doing really well. They just couldn't get a loan because they didn't have the 3-year work history for self-employment that most banks want. But I was able to connect them with a lender, and they were able to do a creative loan program that really just looked at their bank statements instead of their W-2. They might have paid a little bit higher on the interest rate, but the good news for them is they got the house, and once they get the 3 years of work history, they're going to be able to refinance out of that loan for even a lower rate, most likely in the future. The second major hurdle that I want to talk about that people encounter is the question, how much can I afford? You know, a bank might qualify you for a $5 million loan, but you look at that monthly payment and you're like, there's no way I can pay that on a monthly basis. Just because a bank tells you that you qualify doesn't mean you're actually going to be able to have the resources to live the life that you want and afford that monthly payment. So you really need to look at the whole picture. You need to look at how much is the bank going to lend you, and can you afford that monthly payment? Do you feel good about that monthly payment that the bank is willing to lend you for that amount of money? So now this video isn't really about making poor financial decisions. I actually really want to provide a pathway for you for homeownership. I know that you want to move here, you want to be in a home, you don't want to rent. And so I really want to talk about some strategies that just might work for you. So first, I want to tell you a personal story. When my wife and I bought our first home, we were newly married. We've been married over 25 years now. But when we were looking for our first home, we were trying to be extremely budget conscious. And we were asking the question, that second question that I just said, how much can we afford on a monthly payment basis? And we knew that the bank was willing to lend us more money than we were comfortable with. And we were trying to be good stewards of our money, live comfortably just in case, something happened. And we thought, you know what, we can't afford a single family home. So we're just going to shop for townhomes and condos. But then we got some advice from actually my in-laws, and they said, you know what, your income at this level of your life, this stage of your life is only going to go up. So yeah, I commend you for trying to be budget conscious, but maybe this is the time in your life where you can stretch a little bit, and maybe you're going to have to eat the top ramen or just not eat out as much, not get that latte to get this house. And we took their advice and we were actually able to get a single family home. And that has been just such a blessing to us. We're so glad that we stretched the budget. And honestly, our income did go up. After about a year, our income went up, and then it went up even more and more, slowly and slowly. And that payment became very comfortable. It was just a little bit of a struggle there for a few months. So you might be sitting there just thinking, we want to be real budget conscious, but you have to analyze the whole picture. Are you in a place where your income is going up? Even if it's just a cost of living increase year over year, you might want to consider stretching that budget to get the home that you really want to get. So now when we talk about strategy, the first thing we need to look at is affordability. Where are the locations that are actually affordable for your budget? Now I'll tell you, Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, those tend to be the most expensive cities or suburbs in the greater Seattle area because they're closer to the tech hubs. Also, the closer you get to the water, the more expensive homes tend to be. The further out, the less expensive homes will be. If you're going to Bothell, if you're going to Kenmore, we're going to talk about some of those areas here in a minute. But just a general rule of thumb is that the further out from the tech hubs, the less expensive the homes will be. And you want to stay within your budget. You might want to look at some of the outlying areas. Here are a few of the outlying areas that I'll mention that you might want to look into. First off, we have Kenmore, which is just north of Kirkland. It's a great option. Then we also have Bothell. We got even further north, Mill Creek and Woodinville. And I also think a sneaky play is Cottage Lake. It's a neighborhood within Woodinville that tends to be a little bit less expensive, but it's still in pretty close proximity to the places that you're going to want to be. Then if you look south, if you head south, you're going to look at the Renton Highlands and maybe even Auburn. Those areas are much more affordable. And then east, if you go east, you're going to look at North Bend, Maple Valley, Carnation, maybe even Lake Hills in Bellevue and North Kirkland. Those are some great affordable options that might just be within your budget that I would definitely consider. Now, I just had this experience with a client of mine who was living in the tech hub, renting, but they really wanted to own a home. This was their dream. And their budget was not conducive to buying a home in the tech hub, Bellevue, Redmond, Kirkland, or even South Lake Union in Seattle. And so we started looking at some of the outlying neighborhoods, the outlying communities, places where they actually never really spent much time. And I showed them some areas that they might want to consider. And they found Shoreline. And they discovered a great home there that I found for them. And they actually bought this home in Shoreline, and they're so happy they did because they've discovered this community that they never really spent much time in. And guess what? They actually really like it. And to them, the commute is, yes, it's a bit longer, but they own a home. They have so much pride in their home. They're gaining equity, and they're so glad that they made that decision. This is why it's worth looking at different neighborhoods sometimes than what you are used to, because you might fall in love with something that you don't really expect to find and to fall in love with. So now I want to get into a little bit of some out-of-the-box strategies that actually might be able to get you to afford this home and get you in a home so you can purchase this and just have that home ownership pride. And the first thing that I want to talk about is what I call house hacking. Now, house hacking, you might have heard that term, and it's defined differently by lots of different people. But the way that I define it is you just find a way that works. And it might have to be unconventional. And this is what actually my wife and I did. We've owned several homes, and most recently, we had to implement house hacking into our life to get the home that we wanted to get. So here's the story. We found this beautiful home that actually had an ADU downstairs that we could rent out. Our family could live on the other 2 stories, and we could have a renter rent out the downstairs unit, which has its own separate entrance. And the problem was that we were renting at the time, and our rent was pretty high. And when we looked at this house that we could buy, we knew that our monthly payment with this renter in our house would actually be less than what we were paying for rent in our other house just a couple blocks away. And so we thought this is a great opportunity. But guess what? The only problem is that our income was a little bit complicated in such a way where the bank would not qualify us for this house, even though it was actually more affordable than our rental option. And so what we had to do was think outside the box. We had to house hack a little bit. Number one, we had to find a cosigner. Now, a cosigner is somebody who will help qualify for the loan. They're not going to help pay the monthly payments, but that's somebody who the bank will say they can be on paper on the loan, and they can be there for support if an emergency happens. And they're technically on the loan, but they're not really contributing to the monthly payment. And so we found our cosigner that was willing to do that. And then a few years later, once our equity went up and our income became a little bit more clear from the bank's perspective, we were able to refinance them off the loan. So that was a great opportunity for us, finding a cosigner, and it got us into the house that we wanted to get. Now, I will say when it comes to house hacking, I think one of the best things you can do is rent out a room. Asking, are you willing to rent out a room to a friend, or maybe a friend of a friend? Or maybe you can find a house like we did with an ADU downstairs, and would you be willing to rent that out for a season? So we did that for a season, and we had renters in our ADU. Now our whole family, because we have teenage boys, we utilize that whole space. We're able to be in the whole house. We don't need to rent it out, but we always can. And that, my friends, is house hacking 101. Finding extra income streams to pay that mortgage down, and maybe even finding a cosigner to help you do it. The second house hacking opportunity that I would say that you should consider is co-buying. Maybe you have a friend or a family member, you want to live multi-generationally, and you say, hey, let's pool our money together to get that dream house that's way bigger than our needs that we can both live in together. And maybe you can modify the house in a way where you put 2 kitchens if it doesn't have it, 2 laundry rooms, so you can live a little bit separately, but you're co-buying the house together. That's a great option, especially if you feel like there's mutual trust in those relationships and you want to share that life and have that community experience together. So the next strategy that I just want to mention, this is kind of a bonus strategy right here, and it's called a seller rate buydown, otherwise known as a 2-1 buydown. And what that essentially means is you can get the seller to buy down your interest rate. And the way it works is like this. Let's say your fixed interest rate for 30 years is 7%. Well, you can ask the seller to buy down your interest rates. A bank has a program just for this, 2 whole percentage points. So now your first year, you're actually going to be locked in at 5%. And then your second year, it would be 6%. And then after that, you would be back to 7% for the rest of your 30-year loan. What that does is it makes your monthly payment so much less. I think it's around $600 a month less if you're looking at about an $800,000 house. So that's something that you should really consider if monthly payment is a concern and you know your income is probably going to go up in the next couple of years, or you're betting on interest rates to go back down in the next couple of years so you can refinance. And the beautiful thing about this program is you can refinance anytime during it. So if the rates go down and you want to take advantage of that, you can do that. So there's also some other bonuses and incentives about this program. So feel free to reach out to me if you have questions about the 2-1 buy down, but it's a great option if you don't really want to do the house hacking thing, if you don't want to find a roommate, if you don't want an ADU, but you want to get that house, but maybe the monthly payment's a little steep. Let's go for the 2-1 buy down all day long. I think we can make it happen and get you into that home. Now look, just some final thoughts here is that I know home buying is kind of this big, overwhelming process for some people, especially when we talk about affordability here. But I want to encourage you that you can make the home buying process a reality. Even here, you just need a good strategy. You just need a good game plan. You need somebody at the helm that can coach you through the process to make this a reality for you. So I don't know if you know, but I'm actually a life coach as well, a certified life coach. So I offer that as a part of my services just to kind of help you think through your vision, your game plan. So if you got questions about the home buying process or anything else real estate related, feel free to drop me a note, to message me, text me. I'd be glad to help. I'm Matthew Chapman, and I'll see you next time.